Whenever a function receives a callback function as argument and invokes that callback function inside the function definition, otherwise, a function returns another function as return value. In both cases, that type of functions are called as higher order functions, or in short HOF. For example, in this case, there is a doWork function, and while calling that function, we are supplying a function as argument. Let's call it as callback function. So this callback function reference will be stored in this variable, that is my function reference. In this case, after the function name, we should not keep the brackets like this, because we are not calling that function, but we are just receiving that function reference. In other words, this just acts as a variable that stores reference of a function, but here we are not calling that function immediately. So somewhere in the middle or end of the function, we can call that callback function. Actually, we have done the same exercise in the earlier concept, that is callback functions. So in this kind of cases, this doWork function is called as higher order function. So whenever a function receives a function as argument, that type of function is called as higher order function. There can be another scenario. Whenever a function returns another function like this, in that case also the doWork function is called as higher order function. In this case, since we return a function, that function reference can be received into another variable, and we can invoke that function by using that variable later. So overall, how do you understand higher order function is? Either it has to receive the function as argument or return another function as return value. In both cases, that type of functions are called as higher order functions. That means in the hierarchy of the functions, it is a bit up level. For example, I am the function A. I am receiving function B as argument. So I am the superior level. That's why I am myself higher order function. Or in the same way, I am trying to provide this function C as return value. In that case also, I am the superior one, so I can call myself as higher order function. In the real world applications, you will use the higher order functions in all the scenarios of callbacks, asynchronous operations such as promise, querying, and closures. We have already understood the callbacks in the previous lectures, and we are going to understand this querying concept in the further lectures in the same section. And also we will understand the promise and closures in the further sections of JavaScript. So anyways, in the simple scenarios, whenever we are using callbacks concept, there itself there is higher order functions concept. In other words, the function which receives the callback function, that is called higher order function. For example, in the set timeout and set interval, we have passed a callback function as arguments, right? So, since the set timeout and set interval functions are receiving the callback function as argument, those can be called as examples of higher order functions. And in the same way, in the further lectures, we will understand promise. So there also we use the callback functions asynchronously. That is also an example of higher order functions. Means exactly the promise is an example of higher order function. And in the section of arrays, we have some predefined higher order functions such as filter, find, find one, map, and for each, etc. So let me demonstrate these higher order functions now. So this is a program that was demonstrated in the callbacks functions topic. And in this case, the doWork is the function that receives another function reference as argument. So this doWork is a best example of higher order function. It's because it is receiving another function as argument. So here we are supplying the reference of callback 1 or callback 2. That function reference will be copied into another variable called myFunctionRef, and that is being invoked as a part of the function. So overall, since the doWork function receives the function reference as argument, it is called higher order function. And moreover, there can be another example of higher order functions, right? The higher order functions can return the functions. So that is also a possible scenario for the higher order functions topic. So let me demonstrate that. Let me create a file that is hyf.js, that is higher order functions. So in this case, we have a function. Let's say, for example, do some work. And it is recommended to follow camel naming convention always. That is, first letter begin with lowercase, and after that every word begin with uppercase. So there is a function here, and this function receives no arguments and also can return a value. But instead of returning a number or string or some simple value, let's return a function. It's because functions are just values in JavaScript. Just like a number is a value or a string value is a value, otherwise Boolean value is a value, just like that, a function is also a value. So just like you return a number like this, you can also return functions like this. So in this function, let me print something like console.log of hello. So that I am trying to call that do some work function here. But what is that function returns? The function do some work doesn't return a simple value but returns a function. So this function reference can be received into another variable here. Let's say result. So now this result is not a simple number or string, it is a function. That means it is equivalent of presenting this function over here. So as of now, you can believe that the variable result stores a reference of a function. Exactly in the same way, since we have written a function here and that function reference is being stored in this variable, so in this case also exactly it does the same. That is, the result is the variable that stores reference of a function. So that you can call that function by using this result variable. So we are trying to call that function by using that result variable. So here the expected output is hello. So let's check it out. So we can see that hello message. In case if you print that result variable, instead of hello, we will get a function. This function is representing the function that we have written here. And moreover, while returning the functions, be careful. Don't write the function in the next line after the return statement. It's because JavaScript identifies this return statement independently, so it quits out of the function, so that this function will not be taken up into the return statement. So that is why we have to write the function keyword always in line with return statement. We should not write like this in the next line. Alright. So in this case, instead of printing hello, let's try to return the same here, so that this returned value, that is hello, will be given back to the same place where we have called that result function. So this statement will be equivalent to hello. So you will get the same output here. that is hello. Let's try to perform a complex operation. Let's say my requirement is I would like to find out area of a circle, and its formula is pi r square. That is pi into r, where the pi value is equal to 22/7, approximately equivalent to 3.14 and fractions. So let's create a function that finds out the area of a circle, and this will receive the input value as radius value, that is the r value. And instead of returning the direct value, here we are trying to return a function that will perform that calculation. Let's say pi value is math.pi, where m and pi must be the uppercase. It is a predefined constant. So this will be equivalent to the accurate 3.14 fractions as per mathematics. So math.pi into square of radius, that is r into r. So we are trying to call that get area of circle function and supply the radius value, for example 5. You can supply any other input. But the result of this function will not be a direct value. So since we written the function here, this function reference will be stored in this variable called area, but it is not a direct value. So on the next line, we have to invoke that function manually. So we are trying to say like console.log of area, and area is a function, so we must call it by writing the brackets here. So first of all, we are calling a function by using get area of circle and supplying the radius value, for example 5. So this radius equal to 5. Then we are not returning the direct value here, but we will return a function. So this function reference will be stored in this variable called area. And on the next line, we are invoking that function. So that's why we have to keep the brackets here. So we will execute that function here. And of course, the calculation take place. So we will get some result value. So that result value will be taken up by these console.log statements. So overall, we will get the output here. So we will use these higher order functions in all the cases of callback functions, whereas set timeout, set interval, promise, all these are examples of higher order functions in JavaScript. And in the same way, the advanced functions of arrays, such as find, filter, map, these are all examples of higher order functions. And you will find more examples when you go to some frameworks such as React. So finally, let's execute that program. So we are getting the result value, that is 78 point something. That is pi into radius, where radius equal to 5. This is all you need to know about higher order functions in JavaScript.